My name's Jeffrey Hammond. I am part of our worldwide ISV segment here at AWS, and this talk today is going to be very much focused on software product strategy. So I hope that's what you came here to listen to. If not, then I apologize for that. But I'm going to be focused on the concept of profitable growth with software products. I get to spend an awful lot of time with the product teams at our ISV customers, and as happens through EBCs, executive briefings, it happens through a program that I co-operate called the Roadmap Acceleration Program. And in those conversations, I see a lot of recurring trends in terms of how software companies and product strategy teams are trying to drive profit and growth at the same time. So what I'd like to do is two things. I'd like to share some of those recurring trends that I'm seeing and the tactics that your peers are using to be successful. And then I also want to spend a lot of time talking about some of the programs that we have at AWS that are designed to help drive some of those tactics. You know, with 240 odd services or however many there are now, it's very, very easy for us to have technical conversations with our software company customers, but we do have resources to have conversations at the product strategy level and programs that are part of that. So I want to make sure that you know about them, and so you can have conversations with your account managers if any of them are things that you think could help you as you're putting together your strategy and choosing the tactics that you're going to use to drive profitable growth. So let's get started. One of the things that we see in these conversations is in some ways it's easier to write the software than it is to scale the business that you build around the software. And often we find that trying to scale, especially on a global basis, is something that's really challenging for our customers. They've got to be able to answer questions like how you're going to grow, not just the revenue, but how you grow market awareness, how you grow brand loyalty, what the addressable market is for your products. It's especially challenging when you may not have resources in a region that you're looking to expand into, or when you don't necessarily have a lot of history working with large enterprise companies, but you've been working with startups. And so that growth issue is the first challenge. Second, remaining competitive. It's hard to scale if you can't maintain product differentiation. Differentiation is the basis of profitable growth. And so the strategies we see with respect to differentiation include things like investing in intuitive user experience, capturing unique data for your customers, extracting better insights from that data, creating lower cost products that enable you to compete based on price as well. I've been working with our software company customers now for about 3 years at AWS, and I feel like we've almost gone through a complete round trip journey in the last 3 years. When I started in 2022, one of the biggest things that I kept hearing from our customers was growth, growth, growth. That's what's important. The rule of 40, focused on a growth basis, extremely important. So fast forward to 2023. Money got really, really expensive and things changed. And it was interesting to me because I've done products for years and years and years, and it was mainly in more of a traditional software company. And when I saw this focus on growth, I was like, well, doesn't profit matter too? And we saw that in spades when money got really expensive. I remember a call that I had with one of the CPOs at one of our larger security customers in January of 2023. Number one priority, cut 15% from my COGS. That's what I need to do. And we had that happen for about a year until the whole generative AI craze hit. And so now it feels like we're starting to move back from that, but it doesn't feel to me like we're moving all the way back to that growth at any cost type of outlook. So that's one of the reasons that when we're having conversations with our customers, we're focusing on this idea of profitable growth and balancing the two. And we're not the only ones here. There's a bunch of links in this presentation, so when it gets put up on the session after reInvent, you can follow and dive deeper into what I'm saying here. But when we talk to the VCs and PEs that work with our software company customers, in 2021, one of the reasons we saw this focus on growth at all costs was because from their perspective, a 1 point increase in growth in 2021 was worth 6 points of improvement in profit margin. So folks are just doing what their PE companies and VCs were telling them. If you look at where we are now, post 2023, that ratio shifted pretty significantly. Growth is still more important, but it's about twice as important as an improvement in net margin. So as a strategy then, and you think about where you want to be when you're trying to scale, this profitable growth circle that's right here in the middle of the rule of 40. And if you're not familiar with the rule of 40, it's basically that your growth plus your net margin should add up to 40. And that's what most companies, VCs, PEs look for when they are looking for a growth business that is scaling nicely. Traditionally, the way that you executed on that, 2021, you're in the big kind of bluish circle here on maximizing growth. That only works as long as the economic conditions allow that to happen. And so Todd Gardner, who I adapted this graphic from, has a really great quote about the idea of choosing between maximum growth and maximum profit. And that's choosing between profit and growth is not easy, but it's not overly complex. All SaaS companies can be profitable. So the one question you need to answer before picking max growth or max profit is there an objectively reasonable, data-driven, and fully funded plan to drive an accelerated growth? When the economic conditions are conducive to that, it's a lot easier to put that plan together and have the data that backs it. But if not, you can always influence your ability to drive profit. You can cut resources, you can scale back what you're doing, and that's essentially what we saw in 2023. So as opposed to swinging back now to that max growth model, I think the profitable growth option is the one that I'm seeing most of our larger ISVs choose. They're not ready to go back to that full growth at all cost model. So how do you do that? There's a very simple formula that I like to use with software companies. You'll probably recognize it from physics, but we're going to use it in a different adaptation here. So for mass, let's think about the resources that you have at your disposal to invest in building the business. Biggest example of mass is the number of 2 pizza teams that you have to build your software products and make them available. Now, there's a particular wrinkle with the level and the amount of mass that you have, because one of the questions that you need to ask if you want to be able to drive profitable growth is how much of that mass are we spending on software that differentiates ourselves as a company? Because I often will go into a customer and see that there's a lot that they're spending on what I would consider to be non-differentiating tasks. Running a VM is not really differentiating anymore. You could argue that even running a Kubernetes distribution effectively is not really differentiating anymore. If you saw the DQual announcement this week for the Aurora folks, you could make the argument that running a planet scale database with high consistency is not differentiating anymore. And so if you're investing your resources, your M, in that, you've got proportionately less to invest in the things that differentiate yourself, the unique data, the great user experience that you're building. Now there's another aspect to this equation, which is the acceleration. So if you've got those resources, how quickly can you apply those resources to work backward from your customer and apply it to the things that you validate drive differentiation and thus value in the products that you're creating. And so you can do that through delivering software more quickly, through being able to expand more rapidly as part of your go-to-market planning. And so the combination of differentiated M times A equals the force that you can apply in the market to drive profitable growth. So as you build your strategy out, it's always worth asking that question. Are we investing in things that differentiate? Are we investing in things that help us go faster and accelerate? And if the answer is yes, then you're on the path long-term to profitable growth. Now let's dive in a little bit deeper in how you can think about making those investments as you put together your product strategy. There are really 3 areas that are involved in the conversations that I have with the CPOs or the VPs of product that I'm working with. It always starts around this conversation around digital product differentiation. How can you make stuff that is distinct and unique? But very, very quickly from there, we go into what are the tactics that you can use to expand your top line growth? And one of the ways that I love to start those conversations is, how are you going to make more money selling what you have right now over the next 12 months without necessarily changing the line of code? Because there's a lot you can do to drive the growth part of that profitable growth equation just with more effective go-to-marketing resources. And then the final phase of the conversations that we have are around improving operational excellence. If you can reduce costs, you can reduce COGS, you can impact that profitable growth position on that line of 40 graphic. So I'm going to dive into each of these three and talk about some of the common things that we see and some of the programs that we have that can help you with each of those tactics. All right, digital product differentiation. 5 common things that we see. Obviously, building new products. If you build new capabilities that are differentiated and deliver, you can drive revenue with that. Improving customer experience. Putting AI and ML to work is a common tactic that we're seeing right now. Using AI and ML together with data to drive increasing differentiation is something that's at the heart of a lot of the generative AI strategies that I'm seeing with customers right now. And then being able to improve the level of automation for your customers in a way that delivers measurable productivity gains. A couple thoughts about each of these. So thinking big to increase differentiation. So I have lots of conversations about what if we could do this, and some of them are up here, some of the more recent ones. I'm going to pick on that creating blue oceans for home monitoring for a minute. This is something that I did with a customer of ours in Australia last year, and they were primarily hardware-based in their business model, trying to shift to a set of over-the-top services that they could drive recurring revenue from, because recurring revenue is a lot better than one-time revenue if you're trying to build a software-based model. And their idea was, well, what if we could use software to create a home concierge, essentially something that could act in the role of the homeowner and interact with folks that are delivering packages or potential security threats. And so that idea, that thinking big, was something that as an Amazon One team that we could really connect to and say, well, we can help you with that. And so we put a number of programs together, a number of POCs to drive that home concierge. The company launched that at CES early this year, won an innovation award with it, and they're rolling it out as a GA feature right now. So that's an example of where, if we know what the thinking big ideas are, we can run them through programs and we can help to co-develop, to co-innovate around them and deliver success stories. Improving customer experience. One of the biggest common complaints I'm hearing from some of our software company customers is the time it takes to get to first dollar or first activation, the challenge with onboarding products. And for a lot of us that started out in traditional software companies before the advent of SaaS, we always had direct sales forces to help with onboarding, or we had systems integrators that could help. As we see more and more of a transition to product-led growth or expansion to new geographies where we don't have those resources, challenging, complex onboarding can derail a profitable growth strategy. So it is never too early to start asking questions like, how long does it take us to land a new capability in a new area, in a new region? How can we automate the process of onboarding as well as improve automation in the products that we deliver ourselves? Improving day-to-day product usage, common tactic, but that's not the only area to look at it. Often we find that the users of the product are different than the buyers of the product. And so improving the experience for the buyer, for the supervisor, for the administrator is also a very common tactic that we see that is used successfully. Telemetry that informs on product strategy, so if the features that you're investing in are actually paying off because they're being used by customers and they're being found valuable. We get a lot of conversations around how we can put in effective telemetry to inform the investments that we're making. Now this last one's a big one because it's a disruptor, If you think about the way that we've used systems for the last 40 years, we have expected users of our products to adapt to the constraints that we give them, to adapt to the UI, to the forms that we've constructed our products out of. We're now in a transition where we are moving to a customer experience where the customer expresses an intent, and then the system is expected to respond to that intent. And yeah, it's a chat bot right now, or a chat box, but it could be a variety of other form factors. And this was demonstrated very clearly to me in a conversation that I had with one of our customers, that in their onboarding experience with a consumer, they typically will run them through a couple forms and have them fill out information and then try to create a personalized plan for them to use the product. Well, instead of having to hard code that and create forms, they can now simply ask the question of, what's your goal? What are you trying to accomplish? I want to run a marathon. I want to lose 30 pounds. I want to keep my A1C under control. And the ability to create customization to react to the customer's intention creates the opportunities for such a more powerful, more differentiated experience if you can think about how you can build software that responds to that sort of environment. And so that's one of the places where we see the bridge to artificial intelligence and machine learning be so powerful in the ability to create differentiation and innovation that matters. Now, in the software company customers that we are working with, we see kind of two buckets of investment in these capabilities. A lot of the initial investment starts not in the product, but within the operational processes of the software company itself. So can we get better and quicker at writing code? That's the A in the F equals M times A equation that we just talked about. Do A faster. Can we get better at generating content and customizing? One of the reasons we see a lot of that initial investment there is because it's safer. You still have humans between you and your customers. That said, the real opportunity is in embedding the capabilities in the products themselves. And so in the products themselves, there's some fairly common recurring trends that we are seeing drive real differentiated value. One of the first of those is toil reduction. Can we make it easier for the user of the product to accomplish what they need without having to do a lot of things that they don't find valuable? Another example is lighting up dark data. I was working with a customer that their customers often have decades worth of data, and some of that data is drawings that are locked in file cabinets. It's specifications that have never been digitized. And so when they go to do a new project, they don't have access to any of that information as they are designing new projects for new customers. The ability to take advantage and digitize that data becomes part of the value that the software company customer that we're working with is able to provide. So when you think about this ability, what we're finding is that it's the data plus the AI and ML capabilities that really makes the difference. And as an example of that, I've got a great one here, a company called SmartDocs. One of the interesting things about SmartDocs is it's not even generative AI, it's just traditional AI and ML that they're applying. One of the things that they found with their customers is that they spent a lot of time doing manual data entry to extract and categorize the documents that their customers, mainly financial and services companies, were doing. And when they did the work, they found that it cost on average about $1.75 per page. That's a real opportunity for automation, for cost reduction, and for the ability to create value. They used a service like TextRact because, again, text recognition, OCR, is one of those undifferentiated services. There's no reason to spend your M on that service. But then what they built on that was a workflow process with domain-specific knowledge in the financial services industry that they then used to streamline the process and automate it. As a result, they were able to process and save more than 130,000 hours worth of time on their customers' basis. The ability to say, well, that 130 hours times whatever the cost of that hourly time, easy to start talking about the provisioning of value. I want to give another example here, and I'm going to just run a video for a minute here. Good example of using generative AI in the service of UI differentiation and doing that in a hero product. What I'd like you to do as you watch through the next minute of video is just kind of silently count to yourself how many specific examples where you see a generative AI capability used in the product itself. So let's start. Okay, if you saw at least 5 examples, raise your hand. Anybody see more than 10? Yeah, I usually see around 10 or 11 when I look through this. And the reason that I want to put it out there is because what you see is the addition of a number of these different tactics. It's where can we streamline UI? Where can we reduce toil, like with the motion path? You know, you could do the motion path a whole bunch of different ways, and we've had motion paths in PowerPoint for years, but it's the streamlining of the user experience that reduces the toil that provides the value. Creating an experience that's not a distinct, separate experience, but is embedded in the experience of Canva's hero product is another way to drive that differentiation that results in profitable growth. So that's not the only way, though. You know, we see a lot of co-pilots and intelligent assistants. What you tend to see here is the combination both of toil reduction and of automation. For SEG201, one of the things that they can do is very quickly create responses or answer questions that customers have about all the information, all the data that's in the product. They're lighting up dark data. Okay, so how can we help as you put together your innovation and differentiation strategy? There's a number of programs that we have, if you're not familiar with them, that you should think about. First one is working backwards engagement. In this, we have dedicated specialists that walk through with your product teams through a multi-week engagement, a concept or a big idea that you have. We apply the Amazon process to product elaboration. It's called the PR fact process. We ask the 5 whys. We use that as an input to something like a prototyping process. A little bit of a different program is an executive visioning program where our execs will work with your execs around a really big, hairy idea, like a home concierge, or like creating a global operating system for a particular horizontal business process. Our PACE engagement stands for prototyping and cloud engineering. Often these things get stitched together with a working backwards engagement because you can take the output of a working backwards session and go right into a robust prototype that demonstrates that capability. Venture Innovation is a program where we hook very small digital companies, startups, but also ISVs as well, that have particular problems that they solve in an innovative way up with enterprise organizations that are looking to solve exactly those problems. So we kind of act as almost a marketplace or a matchmaker. So if you've got a really great idea, but you're looking to get more exposure to enterprise organizations, that can be a very effective program as well. If you have a specific use case with generative AI that you're looking to move forward in your product, we've got things like the Generative AI Innovation Center. The program I run, Roadmap Acceleration Program, something we'll talk a little bit more about at the end of this presentation. So there's a bunch of different ways that if you want us to help sharpen, refine, and then articulate how we can accelerate that differentiation, we're ready to engage on. I'll give you an example of one of those. I talked a little bit about the Venture Innovation Program. Slice is a smaller insurance startup out of Australia that makes it very, very easy to generate and implement policies in a completely digital way. Lots of insurers are very interested in having that capability. So we've been able to match them up with enterprises here in the US to deliver that capability and to improve the innovation from some of our enterprise clients. And the Slice folks have been really happy with the results there. Okay, so that's number one, expanding innovation and differentiation. Let's talk about top-line growth. So if you already have your product strategy in place, it's moving forward, being able to expand that to a larger market, to new markets, is a great way to drive additional growth without necessarily spending a lot of additional money. So if you can drive additional customer growth from a geographic perspective, if you can drive it by going up market to appeal to more enterprises, even if those enterprises require some additional capabilities in order to support them at a larger level. This is where we will often see companies make additional investments in market adjacencies in order to drive growth and improve the value, the net revenue retention of the products that we're selling, that they're selling as well. So some of the common tactics here: geographic expansion, portfolio expansion via mergers and acquisitions, the adjacent market entries, adding new capabilities, net new products in related fields. Transitioning to a product-led growth model is something that we see as fairly common here. And then if you are in a situation where economic conditions are not conducive to growth, like we were in 2022, 2023, then refocusing on the customers that you have and looking for ways to increase the current revenue retention with them. Very, very common tactics. So M&A is an interesting one here. I've got a great example of that with Qualia. Qualia is a software company customer that is in the mortgage processing space. And they started with that core mortgage processing use case. But as any of us that have ever bought a home knows, there's an awful lot of stuff that happens around that mortgage and real estate closing process. You've got to do title insurance, and so customizable title production was something that they saw as a market adjacency, and they moved to support it. It's interesting because even though we saw deal value for mergers and acquisitions to support market adjacencies go down in 2022 and 2023, the number of actual transactions remain constant and actually increased a little bit. So what my interpretation of that is what we've seen is software companies making tactical investments for adjacent market entry, not necessarily paying price premiums, but to be able to offer additional capabilities to their customers to increase that net revenue retention. Now there's some ways that we can help with these as well. Really good example of this is the M&A Accelerator. You probably have never heard of it, but it's a particular service that we offer when you're looking to potentially acquire another company, where we can analyze how difficult it's going to be to potentially consolidate their infrastructure with your existing infrastructure, how we can help set up control landing zones, as an example, to facilitate that M&A process. And so we can substantially reduce the time and complexity of going through that sort of process. Global Passport is a really good example of a program that we designed last year, and that we've now probably, I think we're closing in on over 100 engagements that is specifically designed to help software companies that are looking to move from one region to another. I have a really good customer in Australia, and one of the things they told me is, Australia's about 30 million people. You get to a point as a software company in Australia where the only way to grow is to move outside and to expand into other geographies. We see a lot of European companies that want to come to the U.S. We see U.S. companies that want to go to APJ. There's a lot of interest in the Middle East right now, especially with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And so Passport is a program that is designed to help execute the strategy with respect to those expansion priorities that you might have. Marketplace, you're probably all familiar with. Really, really good way to develop a lower cost channel to expand your top line growth without necessarily expanding a bunch of additional resources, especially if you can use it as a channel to complement that level of geographic expansion. If you're not familiar with ISV Accelerate, I think you will find that ISV Accelerate will be an increasingly important part of your channel strategy as you continue to grow on top of AWS. And it's one really, really good way to start to unlock the ability to co-sell within the AWS ecosystem. So these are all things that you can use to be more effective in your go-to-market strategy and resources. Another good example here, I'll pick on Canva again, I seem to always pick on them, but they used our Global to China program to accelerate their entry into to the Chinese market. And because they were able to do that a lot faster, think back to the A, part of that F equals M times A, they're able to start to realize revenue much more quickly. So win-win for you and for us. Okay, last component, improving operational excellence. Costs still matter, and when you're talking about improving margin, reducing costs is a great way to improve margin. And so we see a number of different tactics that are fairly commonly deployed here. First one, cost optimization. If you're not looking at, how do we use RIs, how do we use spot instances, how do we use savings plans, then you're leaving money on the table, because none of that requires any sort of technology changes or modifications to take advantage of. Technology optimizations, we see significant opportunities for cost benefits, even if it does potentially require a little bit of work on your part. Probably the best example there, which you've already heard about, is Graviton. But if your number one cost is compute, and you can see significant cost savings on that, then it's one of those things that's not necessarily as much of a technology investment to realize a pretty significant cost benefit. Embracing cloud-native SaaS architectures, this is a big one, especially for more traditional software companies that we work with. A lot of those companies will very, very quickly move existing products to enable SaaS using single-tenant architectures. There are some cost implications with that, and so then being able to further reduce the COGS by starting to move from a single-tenant architecture to more of a multi-tenant architecture is one of those things that can accelerate things like a geographic expansion strategy. I was talking with a customer earlier this week, and one of the things they told me was it costs us about over $500,000 to move into a new region before we sign a single customer. Think about your ability to expand quickly and drive profitable growth if that's the kind of COGS you're looking at. If you can make technology investments in repeatable SaaS patterns that would lower that first customer cost, then it allows you to think about profitable growth. Okay, so technology strategy can be as simple as something like, finding the right database, and that's where we'll come in and we'll get the right database specialists and make sure that they're looking at the opportunities to help with that. I mentioned technology optimization opportunities, and Graviton in particular, I will tell you that we have seen significant cost savings across the ISV segment as more and more of our customers have been able to take advantage of Graviton. So we know that on average, you can cut as much as 25% of your compute costs if you're able to take full advantage of its capabilities as part of your scaling strategy. With respect to that SaaS tactic, if you've never heard of the fish model, it's really important to think about, because what you tend to see as you go through that SaaS modernization strategy and start with single tenant SaaS is one of the challenges is that your revenues go down in the short term and your costs go up. Now, in an ideal world, those costs start to come back down, but often that's not what we see as organizations scale. So while you've got a very pretty fish here, it's very often something that turns into something that looks a little bit more like a shark or a whale. And the reason for that is because of product discipline. So if you have an on-prem product, are you going to keep that on-prem product and keep investing in that product at the same time as you're building that SaaS product? If you build that SaaS product and you take a single tenant approach to be able to very quickly generate growth, but you're not thinking about the costs, what you'll often find is you then have to do the next generation of SaaS product, which is multi-tenant, which does have much lower COGS. What do you do with that first generation single tenant SaaS product in the meantime? It's not uncommon to see a situation where you're maintaining 3 separate code bases. You have the COGS that are part of those, and you're not necessarily being able to take the amount of M that you have and spend that on differentiation. So you're spending, essentially spending to keep 3 code bases for the foreseeable future. So do you have the discipline to start to end of life those other code bases to reduce the expenditures? So this is an area where our SaaS Factory team, and if you're not familiar with them, they exist to help our customers adopt SaaS in a productive and profitable way, can help you chart your own SaaS journey. It's really important to understand where you want to end up at the end of that journey. Is it a full-scale multi-tenant SaaS infrastructure that has a minimal cost to land in a new region? Or is it potentially even a hybrid SaaS architecture because your customers have a lot of data that they need to manage, and their expectation is they want to keep that data in their own AWS account? So you have to think about a distributed data plane for your SaaS control plane. Knowing that before you get 2 or 3 years into the translation or the modernization process at the start can save a ton of money and make it a lot easier to get to where you want to be on a scaling perspective. And so that SaaS Factory team can help you as you work through those sorts of product calculations. Last thing, very common discussion with ISVs that are scaling about what their resilience strategy is going to be. And usually the way that I'll ask this question is, are you looking at multi-AZ resilience, or are you looking at multi-region resilience? And I guess the better way to phrase that question is, what are your customers' expectations on your resilience strategy? Increasingly, as organizations go up to enterprises, the enterprise has an expectation of multi-region resilience strategy. And so if you think that you're going to be selling to the enterprise in the long run, it's never too early to start to think about how you architecturally plan for that sort of environment. Because it's not cheap. And so there's a kind of a graphic that I like to use to think about this. And if you think that you are going to be in that active end in terms of having to work across multiple regions, then you need to start thinking about things like cellular architectures or more stateless architectures as you are building up the services that are part of your product, because it's a lot easier to scale those up and down, be able to do failover with them, and it's not the kind of thing that you can build overnight. So, it's a really easy way for the profit part of that profitable growth effort to go off track really quickly because of what you're doing from a go-to-market perspective in terms of adding bigger and bigger customers. So you have to balance that. how can we help you deal with your optimization and your COGS reduction efforts? I already mentioned SaaS Factory. Great organization to work with. Some other things like optimization and licensing assessments. Are there ways that you can save money and move to services that are based on open source technologies, especially if you're a traditional ISV that's made some investments in .NET technology or Windows technology? There's a lot of opportunity there. We also have technical field communities of experts that can help with this technology process as you map it out and can give you advice on how to think about operating at scale across multiple regions. Really good example of that, a company called CyberArk that worked with the SaaS Factory team to take some of their on-prem products, very complex products, and SaaS enable them. We were able to help them do that very quickly and do it in a way that has helped them drive profitable growth as part of that migration effort. Okay, so every software company strategy with respect to these tactics is going to be unique. So what you need to think about is which of these investments are we making to drive our profitable growth strategy? Are we spending more time on digital product differentiation? Do we have real opportunities in go-to-market because we can expand? Do we have opportunities to reduce our costs? How you apply those tactics is something that we can help with, but if you already know what you want to do, then you've got the programs that we have that you can engage with. One of the ways that we can help you work through that unique strategy is a program that I run. It's called the Roadmap Acceleration Program. What we do is we spend a couple hours with your CPO or your VP of product, and we run through these things. We say basically, okay, what are your top 5 priorities with respect to differentiating your product? How are you going to continue to win customers going forward? What are your top go-to-market priorities? How are you going to expand the markets that you have? How are you going to expand the channels that you're selling through? Where are the best opportunities for optimization and for COGS reduction? We take what we hear from that team and we come back with an opinionated set of opportunities, including the steps that your AWS sales team, field team, technology team can take to help you accelerate those opportunities. We do that in an exercise that is unique to Amazon. It's I kind of describe it as a little bit like agile planning poker, but at a product portfolio level. And so on top of that, we'll say these are the 2 or 3 things that we think are the most compelling opportunities that we should execute right now. So in a sense, we draw the map through all of those services, all of those programs, all of those things that you have probably never heard of until this particular session. And then we use that as a way to get on the same page, to run that F equals M times A equation and increase the A and increase the M. What we'll also do then is come back with our assessment of which of these programs and which of these services we think are right in your unique situation. So if it's something you're interested in, just tell your account manager that you're interested in running a wrap session with us, and we'll come in and we'll engage that product team, and we'll do that with a focus on driving profitable growth. So with that, I want to thank you. If you are not aware of the specific content that we have for software companies at AWS, I'll leave this up for a while, take a picture of the QR code, because that's a great place to start and learn more about these programs and opportunities. And so with that, I want to thank you. I'll hang around for a few Q&A, any questions that you might have afterward, and hope you have a great day. Thanks.